Jake Morrison stood by the large window on the starship. He looked out at the empty space around them. Behind him, the last human ships were getting ready to leave. They were going home. All of them. Every single human in the galaxy was leaving. He had been a commander in the human fleet for 20 years. In all that time, he had never thought this day would come. But here they were, packing up, going away, leaving the galaxy behind. A young officer walked up to him. Her name was Amy Carter. She carried a small computer pad in her hands. Her face looked sad and tired. "All the ships are ready, sir," she said quietly. "Every colony has been cleared. Everyone is coming home." Jake took the pad from her. He read the reports. Mars colony empty. The mining stations near Jupiter empty. The research base on Europa empty. Every human settlement in every corner of the galaxy had been abandoned. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Just left behind. He looked back out the window. In the distance, he could see the council station. It was huge. Bigger than any city on Earth. Hundreds of alien species lived there. They made laws. They controlled trade. They decided who was important and who was not. For 300 years, humans had tried to join that council. They had asked nicely. They had helped when disasters happened. They had built things. They had saved lives. And every time the answer was the same: no, not yet. Maybe later. You are not ready. Jake remembered Helen Price. She had been the human ambassador for 15 years. She had gone to every meeting. She had spoken at every gathering. She had begged the council to listen. They laughed at her. Not to her face. They were too polite for that. But Jake had seen the reports. He knew what they said behind closed doors. Humans were useful. Good workers. Good engineers. But not smart enough to sit at the big table. When human cargo ships were attacked by pirates, the council said it was not their problem. When human colonies needed help during storms or earthquakes, they were told to handle it themselves. When humans asked for protection under galactic law, they were ignored. So now humans were leaving. Not in anger, not with threats or weapons, just quietly packing up and going away. "What about the stations, sir?" Amy asked. "The relay stations and the power plants? Leave them," Jake said. "They still work. Let the council figure out how to run them." Amy nodded. She understood. The humans had built most of the important systems in the galaxy. The communication networks, the power grids, the medical centers, the trading routes. All of it had been designed and maintained by human engineers. The other species did not know how any of it worked. They just used it. They took it for granted. Like turning on a light without thinking about where the power came from. Jake walked away from the window. He went to his office and sat down at his desk. There was one last thing to do. He had to send a message to the council. He thought about what to say. He could write about all the ways humans had been treated badly. He could list every time they had been ignored or dismissed. He could demand an apology. But what was the point? The council did not care about human feelings. They never had. Words would not change anything, so Jake kept it simple. He typed out a short message. To the Galactic Council. Humanity is leaving. All trade agreements are ended. All diplomatic missions are closed. We wish you well, that was it. No explanation. No demands. No threats. Just a simple goodbye. He read it one more time. Then he pressed send. The message would take a few hours to reach the council station. By then, the last human ships would be gone. They would be on their way to a new home. A place where no one knew they existed. A place where they could start over. Jake stood up and walked back to the window. The ships were starting to move now. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness, jumping to distant stars, going somewhere safe. Amy came back into the room. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked. Jake did not answer right away. He thought about all the humans who had worked so hard to build a good relationship with the galaxy. All the doctors who had saved alien lives. All the engineers who had fixed broken systems. All the diplomats who had tried to make peace. And he thought about how none of it had mattered. The galaxy had used them and given nothing back. "Yes," he said finally. "We tried talking. We tried helping. We tried everything. They did not listen. Maybe they will understand this." Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out. On space stations and planets. In hospitals and schools. In factories and farms. Humans were leaving. They took their families. They took their important belongings. But they left behind everything they had built. The buildings still stood. The machines still ran, but there was no one left to fix them when they broke. No one left to explain how they worked. No one left to keep them going. On the council station, life went on as normal. Aliens went to work. Ships came and went. Meetings were held. No one noticed that the human delegation had not shown up. No one wondered why the human cargo ships had not arrived. It would take them weeks to realize something was wrong. By then, it would be too late. Jake watched his ship move away from the council station. The huge structure got smaller and smaller until it was just a tiny dot of light in the darkness. He felt strange. Not happy, not sad. Just tired. Tired of trying so hard for people who did not care. The ship's computer announced they were ready to jump. Jake gave the order. The engines hummed. Space twisted around them. And then they were gone. Behind them, the galaxy continued on, not knowing that everything was about to change. Not understanding that the humans they had ignored for so long were the ones holding everything together. The message sat in the council's communication system, waiting to be read, waiting to deliver news that would shake the entire galaxy. Humanity had left without a word of warning. Without anger, without violence. They had simply walked away, and soon, very soon, the galaxy would understand what it had lost. Counselor Vex sat in his office looking at the schedule on his computer screen. Something was wrong. The weekly trade meeting had happened yesterday, and the human representatives had not come. That was strange. Humans always came to meetings. They were very reliable. Vex was from a species called the Zorathi. They were good at managing money and trade. His job was to make sure all the shipping routes worked properly. And right now, something was not working. He called his assistant, a young Zorathi named Kren. When Kren arrived, Vex pointed at the screen. "Have you heard from any humans this week?" Vex asked. Kren thought for a moment. "No, sir. Now that you mention it, I have not seen any human ships at the docking bay either." Vex felt worried. Check the records. How many human ships were supposed to arrive this week? Kren worked on his own computer for a few minutes. His expression changed as he read the numbers. 16 cargo ships were scheduled to dock here. None of them showed up. There were no messages saying they would be late. They just never arrived. "That is impossible," Vex said. "Human ships do not just disappear. Try to contact them." Kren sent messages to every human communication channel they had. Nothing came back. Every message failed to deliver. It was like the humans had simply vanished. 2 weeks passed. The situation got worse. More and more people noticed that humans were missing. The medical center called because their human doctors had not shown up for work. The engineering department said the human technicians were gone. Even the restaurants were asking where their human suppliers were. On the lower levels of the station, something serious happened. The main power relay stopped working properly. Lights began to flicker. Computers shut down randomly. The temperature controls failed. Lyra Quinn was the station administrator. She was responsible for keeping everything running smoothly. She called an emergency meeting with all the department heads. The chief engineer was a large alien called Torque. He had 6 arms and was very strong. But he looked defeated as he explained the problem. "The power relay is a human design," Torque said. "I have been trying to fix it for 3 days. I have read all the manuals. I understand what each part does. But I cannot figure out how to repair it. What do you mean?" Lyra asked. "The humans left instructions, did they not?" "Yes, they did. Very detailed instructions. But the actual machine is more complicated than the instructions show. The humans built it in a way that needs human thinking to understand." Lyra rubbed her forehead. She was getting a headache. "Can you keep it running?" "For a while," Torque said. "But it will break completely soon. When that happens, half the station will lose power." Lyra made a difficult decision. They would have to start turning off power in some areas to save energy in others. People would not be happy, but there was no choice. 3 weeks after the humans left, a message finally arrived at the council chamber. It had been traveling through space, taking time to reach them. When it arrived, it was delivered to the High Chancellor. Chancellor Raven was the leader of the council. He was from a species called the Keltharians. They had silver skin and 4 eyes. Raven had been in charge for many years. He thought he had seen everything. But when he read the human message, he had to read it 3 times before he believed what it said. Humanity is leaving. All trade agreements are ended. All diplomatic missions are closed. We wish you well, that was all. No explanation. No list of complaints. No demands. Just goodbye. Raven immediately called an emergency council meeting. Within an hour, the huge chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Everyone was talking at once. The noise was overwhelming. Raven called for silence. He read the human message out loud. The chamber went completely quiet. Then everyone started shouting again. Questions came from all directions. Where did the humans go? Why did they leave? What about our contracts? What about our trade routes? A junior assistant raised his hand. He had been doing research. When Raven called on him, he stood up nervously. I have checked all the human settlements we know about, the assistant said. 417 locations in total. Every single one has been abandoned. The buildings are still there. The equipment is still there. But all the humans are gone. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives started arguing with each other. Some blamed the humans. Some blamed the council. Some just looked scared. One representative stood up. He was from the Trexian Empire. His species had built their entire economy on human shipping services. His voice shook with anger. This is a disaster, he shouted. Human ships carry our goods to 70 different systems. What are we supposed to do now? A Caldari representative spoke next. Her people needed human medical supplies. We have hospitals full of patients who depend on human medicine. Those supplies have stopped coming. People will die. One by one, representatives stood to speak. Each one had the same problem. Their civilization had been using human services. Now those services were gone, and they had no way to replace them. The Nexians needed human engineers to maintain their space stations. The Palaxians needed human farmers to grow their food. The Vorians needed human doctors to treat their sick. As Raven listened to each speaker, he began to understand something terrible. The humans had not just been part of the galaxy, they had been holding it together, and no one had noticed until they were gone. He thought back over the years. How many times had humans asked to join the council? How many times had they been refused? How many times had they offered help and been treated like servants? Raven felt ashamed. But shame would not fix the problem. He called for silence again. We must find the humans. We must bring them back. Does anyone know where they went? No one answered. The humans had disappeared completely, and they had done it so quietly that no one had seen them go. Counselor Vex stood up. I suggest we send a team to Earth, their home planet. Surely someone there can tell us what happened. Raven agreed. A ship was prepared immediately. The fastest vessel in the fleet was sent to the Sol system where Earth was located. It would take 3 weeks to get there, but Raven had a bad feeling. Something told him that when the ship arrived it would find nothing. He was right. The ship sent back its report 3 weeks later. The Sol system was empty. Every planet, every moon, every space station, all abandoned. The only thing left was an automated message beacon. The message was simple. This system is no longer inhabited. Do not attempt to follow. The humans were gone, and they had made sure no one could find them. 2 months had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was falling apart. Trade Minister Gorlan stood in front of the council. He was shaking with anger. His species, the Trexians, were in serious trouble. Their economy was collapsing. For 200 years we have used human cargo ships, Gorlan said. They carried our products to 70 systems. They were fast. They were reliable. They were cheap. Now they are gone, and we have nothing to replace them. He showed the council the numbers. Trexian exports had dropped by 80%. Factories were closing. Workers had no jobs. The economy was dying. We are not the only ones suffering, Gorlan continued. Every species here has the same problem. He was right. One after another, representatives stood to speak. Each one told a story of disaster. The Caldari had lost their medical supplies. Without human medicine, their hospitals could not treat many diseases. People were dying. The Nexians could not maintain their space stations. Human engineers had designed the life support systems. Now those systems were breaking down and nobody knew how to fix them. The Palaxians were running out of food. Human agricultural technology had helped them grow crops on their dry planet. Without that technology, the crops were failing. Chancellor Raven listened to each speaker. His 4 eyes looked tired and sad. He had been the leader during the years when humans asked to join the council. He had been one of the people who said no. Now he understood what a mistake that had been. The humans had not been asking for charity. They had been asking for respect. and the galaxy had refused to give it to them. Counselor Vex stood up to speak. We must face the truth. The humans were not just participants in our economy. They were the foundation of it. We used their services for everything, and we gave them nothing in return. Some of the other counselors looked angry at these words, but they could not argue. Vex was telling the truth. Across the galaxy, the infrastructure humans had built was failing. Communication relays stopped working. Power plants broke down. Water purification systems failed. Medical equipment malfunctioned. On a colony ship far from the council, a human woman named Laura Bennett watched the reports. She had designed most of the communication network that connected the inner systems. She had done it 30 years ago. The network was failing now. One by one, systems were losing contact with each other. Laura had built the relays to last a long time with only basic maintenance. But that maintenance still needed to be done, and there was no one left who knew how. She had left instructions. Very detailed instructions. Any good engineer could follow them. But following instructions was not enough. You had to understand the principles behind the design. You had to think the way the designer thought. Human engineers thought differently than other species. They built systems that were elegant and efficient. They made everything work together smoothly, but this also meant the systems were complicated in ways that were hard for others to understand. Laura felt sad watching the galaxy struggle. She had not wanted this to happen. She had wanted the council to appreciate human work, to treat humans as equals, but they never had. Now maybe they would learn. In another part of space, Dr. Kevin Wright read reports about medical emergencies. He had been a doctor in the outer colonies for 20 years. He had treated hundreds of different species. He had saved thousands of lives. Now people were dying because there were no human doctors. A plague had started on a planet called Vorta Prime. Human medicine could have stopped it easily. But there was no human medicine anymore. On another world, children were being born with a genetic disease. Human gene therapy could have cured them, but the human doctors were gone. Kevin had left all his research behind. Every hospital had access to human medical knowledge. Every medical school taught human techniques. But knowledge was not the same as skill. Human doctors had an instinct for healing that came from centuries of practice. Other species could learn these skills eventually. But that would take time. And people were dying now. Kevin closed his computer. It hurt to see the suffering. But what else could humanity have done? They had offered their help freely for centuries. They had asked only for respect in return. And the galaxy had refused. Maybe this pain would teach the galaxy an important lesson. Back at the council station, things were getting worse. 14 systems had lost all communication with the rest of the galaxy. Nobody could contact them. Nobody knew if they were okay. 23 colonies reported food shortages. The crops were not growing properly without human farming methods. 40 regions were running out of medical supplies. Hospitals could not treat their patients. The council had tried to fix the problems. They hired engineers from many different species to study human technology. They tried to recreate human supply chains. They sent diplomatic messages to anyone who might know where the humans went. Nothing worked. The engineers could not understand the technology. The supply chains were too complex to rebuild quickly, and nobody knew where the humans were. Chancellor Raven called another emergency meeting. This time he had a proposal. It was a difficult proposal. Many counselors would not like it. But he saw no other choice. We must offer the humans full council membership, Raven said. Not as junior members. Not as probationary members. As full equals with all rights and privileges. The chamber went silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Some counselors were angry. We should not negotiate while under pressure. It makes us look weak. Others were practical. We have no choice. Without the humans, our civilization is collapsing. The debate lasted for hours. But in the end, survival won over pride. The council voted to offer humans full membership. They would have voting rights. They would have protection under all council laws. They would be treated as complete equals. There was only one problem. Nobody knew where the humans were. Raven ordered a massive search. Every available ship was sent out to look for any sign of human presence. They searched thousands of systems. They followed every possible lead. Weeks passed. Then months. The search continued. The galaxy kept falling apart. And still there was no sign of humanity. It seemed the humans had vanished completely. They had left the galaxy behind, and they had made very sure that no one could follow them. The Council had taken humanity for granted. They had used human skills and given nothing back. They had treated humans as servants rather than equals. Now the galaxy was learning what life was like without humans. And it was much harder than anyone had imagined. The question was simple. Could the Council find humanity before everything fell completely apart? And if they did find them, would the humans even want to come back? Captain Nina Foster stood on the bridge of her scout ship. The ship was called Pathfinder, and for the last 4 months she had been searching for humanity. It was not going well. She had investigated 63 different systems. She had followed every lead the Council gave her. She had talked to traders and explorers who might have seen something. Every time she found nothing. The humans had disappeared completely. It was like they had never existed. Nina understood why they had left. She had read the history files. She knew how badly the Council had treated humanity. If she were human, she probably would have left too. But understanding did not make her job easier. The galaxy was falling apart. People were dying. Systems were failing. And only the humans could fix it. Her navigator was an alien named Quinn. He was from a species called the Zentari. They were good at finding things. But even Quinn was having trouble with this search. "Captain," Quinn said from his station, "I have something. It might be nothing, but it is worth checking." Nina walked over to look at his screen. "What did you find?" "A deep space monitoring station detected unusual energy patterns 3 months ago. The patterns do not match any known species. They came from a nebula in an unexplored sector." Nina felt a small spark of hope. It was the first real lead they had found. Set course for those coordinates. The journey took 5 days. As they got closer to the nebula, Nina felt more and more nervous. This might be nothing, or it might be everything. When they entered the nebula, the ship's sensors started detecting structures. "Lots of structures." Quinn stared at his screens in amazement. "Captain, you need to see this." Nina looked at the sensor readings. What she saw took her breath away. The nebula was full of human constructions. Massive space stations floated in the dense clouds. Industrial facilities mined resources from hidden asteroids. Agricultural platforms grew food. Defensive weapons watched every approach. This was not a temporary hiding place. This was a new civilization. The humans had built an entire society in secret. How long would this have taken to build? Nina asked. Quinn did some calculations. Based on the size and complexity, at least 10 years, maybe longer. Nina realized what that meant. The humans had been planning this for a decade or more. While they were still working for the Council, still maintaining the infrastructure, still helping everyone, they had been building this place in secret. They had given the galaxy every chance to treat them fairly, and when the galaxy refused, they had prepared an escape. A message appeared on the communication screen. It was text only, no video, unidentified vessel. "You are in restricted space. Turn back immediately or defensive systems will activate." Nina took a deep breath. She opened a channel. "This is Captain Nina Foster of the scout ship Pathfinder. I come on behalf of the Galactic Council. We need to talk." There was a long silence. Then a new message came through. This time with video. A human man appeared on the screen. He looked to be in his 40s. His face was calm but cold. Nina recognized him from the Council files. "Commander Jake Morrison, former human liaison to the Council." "Captain Foster," Jake said. "You should not be here. There's nothing for the Council in this place." "Commander Morrison, I have an official message from the Council. They want to negotiate." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Negotiate? How interesting. For 300 years we asked to negotiate. We were told no every single time. Now suddenly the Council wants to talk." Nina could hear the bitterness in his voice. She did not blame him. "Things have changed, Commander. The Council is offering full membership, equal voting rights, everything humanity asked for." Jake was quiet for a moment. And why would they offer this now? Could it be because their infrastructure is falling apart? Because their economy is collapsing? Because they finally realize they need us? Nina did not know what to say. Everything he said was true. "Yes," she admitted. "That is exactly why." "At least you are honest," Jake said. "That is more than the Council ever was with us." "Very well, Captain. You may dock at Station 7. Come alone. We will talk." The screen went dark. Nina felt relieved. They were willing to talk. That was more than she had hoped for. Quinn guided the ship to the designated station. As they approached, Nina could see how well defended it was. Weapons platforms surrounded it. Shields protected it. The humans were taking no chances. She took a shuttle to the station. When she entered, she was met by armed guards. They were polite but firm. They escorted her through clean, efficient corridors to a conference room. Jake Morrison was waiting there. So were several other humans. Nina recognized some of them. Helen Price, former ambassador. Laura Bennett, the famous engineer. Kevin Wright, the doctor who had saved thousands of lives. They all looked at her with the same expression. Not hostile, not friendly. Just careful, please sit, Jake said, pointing to a chair. Nina sat down. She placed a data chip on the table. This contains the official offer from the council. Full membership, equal rights, protection under all laws. Helen Price picked up the chip and plugged it into a computer. She read the document carefully. Then she looked at Nina. This is everything we asked for 47 times, Helen said. 47 times we were told no. Why should we believe the council now? Nina chose her words carefully. Because the galaxy is learning what it means to live without you. Because people are suffering. Because the council finally understands that they were wrong. Jake leaned forward. People are suffering. That is unfortunate. But humans suffered for centuries and nobody cared. We were attacked by pirates and the council did nothing. We asked for help during disasters and the council ignored us. We tried to be good members of the galactic community, and we were treated like servants. Nina felt the weight of his words. Everything he said was true. She had read the reports. She knew the history. You are right, she said. The council failed you. They took advantage of your kindness. They dismissed your requests. They treated you unfairly. I cannot change the past, but I am asking you to consider the future. Helen looked at Jake. Then she looked at the others in the room. We need to discuss this, she said. Captain Foster, please wait outside. Nina stood up and left the room. The guards took her to a waiting area. She sat there for 3 hours, wondering what the humans were deciding. Finally, Helen came to get her. We have conditions, she said. Nina felt hope rising in her chest. Tell me. Nina sat across from Helen Price and Jake Morrison. The room was quiet. Outside, she could see human workers going about their business through a window. They looked happy, content. They had built something good here. Helen placed a document on the table. These are our terms. We spent 2 days discussing what we need from the council. Nina picked up the document and began to read. First, humanity would receive full council membership with veto power. This meant humans could block any law that would hurt their species. Second, all debts related to human property would be forgiven. The council owed humans money for facilities they had abandoned. That debt would be cleared. Third, the council would create a formal recognition of human contributions to galactic civilization. This would be recorded in the official histories. Fourth, and most important, the council would create new laws to protect smaller species. No more would junior civilizations be exploited or ignored. There would be clear rules about how all species must be treated. Nina read the terms twice. They were not unreasonable. In fact, they were fair, maybe even generous considering how badly the council had behaved. I will take this back to the council, Nina said. I believe they will accept. Jake leaned back in his chair. Make sure they understand something, Captain. We are not coming back because we need them. We are coming back because we believe in helping others. But if the council breaks these promises, we will leave again. And next time, we will not give them a chance to find us. Nina nodded. She understood. I will make sure they know. She returned to her ship and sent the terms to the council. Then she waited. The council's response came back in 6 hours. It was the fastest decision they had ever made. All terms accepted. Please inform humanity that we await their return. Nina transmitted the acceptance to the human station. Within a day, preparations began. The humans were going home. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood at a window again. But this time he was watching ships prepare to go back to the galaxy, not leave it. The first wave had already left. Engineers heading to repair critical infrastructure. Doctors going to treat medical emergencies. Traders preparing to restart supply chains. It felt strange to be going back. Jake had thought he would never see the council station again. He had been happy here in the nebula. The humans had built a good society. They did not need the galaxy, but they were going back anyway. Because that was what humans did. They helped. Even when it was hard. Even when they had been hurt. Helen Price came to stand beside him. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jake thought about the question. "Ready, no, but willing." "Yes," Helen smiled slightly. "That is good enough. We are doing the right thing." "I know," Jake said, "but I want to make sure the Council understands something. We are not doing this for them. We are doing this because of who we are." "They will understand," Helen said. They learned their lesson. Jake hoped she was right. The humans had left without a word because words had never worked. Their absence had spoken louder than any speech. Now the galaxy knew what humans were worth. 3 weeks later, the first council session with human representatives began. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted to see this historic moment. Jake, Helen, and 5 other humans walked to their seats. The chamber went quiet. All eyes were on them. Chancellor Raven stood up. His silver skin seemed to glow in the chamber's lights. His 4 eyes looked at each human carefully. On behalf of the Galactic Council, Raven said, "I want to apologize. We failed humanity. We failed to recognize your contributions. We failed to respect your rights. We failed to treat you as equals. We were wrong and we are sorry." The chamber was completely silent. This was the first time in galactic history that the Council had apologized to anyone. Helen stood to respond. Her voice was clear and strong. "Humanity accepts this apology, but we need more than words. We need action. We need proof that things have really changed." She paused and looked around the chamber. "We are returning not as servants but as partners. We are here to help rebuild what was broken, but we are also here to make sure the mistakes of the past are never repeated. We have one warning for this council. If you fail to keep your promises, if you go back to the old ways, we will leave again, and next time you will not find us." The chamber remained quiet. Then slowly councilors began to stand. One by one they rose from their seats. It was not applause. It was acknowledgement, recognition, respect. For the first time in 300 years, humans were being treated as equals. The work began immediately. Human engineers traveled to failing systems and began repairs. Human doctors went to planets suffering from disease. Human farmers taught better agricultural methods. Human traders restored supply chains. It took months, but slowly the galaxy started to recover. Power came back online. Communication networks were restored. Medical supplies reached those who needed them. Food production increased. Jake watched it all happen. He traveled from system to system, helping coordinate the recovery efforts. Everywhere he went, he saw gratitude. The other species finally understood what humans had been doing all along. One day he met Counselor Vex. The Zarathi looked older and tired. He had been one of the few counselors who had tried to help humanity in the past. "Commander Morrison," Vex said, "I want you to know something. I voted for your membership applications, all 47 times. I am sorry I could not convince the others." Jake shook his head. "You tried. That matters. Not everyone did." Vex looked sad. "We took you for granted, all of us. Even those of us who respected you. We assumed you would always be there. We never imagined you would leave." Jake smiled slightly. "That was the problem. You should have imagined it. Everyone has limits. Even humans." A year after the humans returned, the council held a special ceremony. They unveiled a monument in the central plaza of the council station. It was a simple sculpture of human hands holding up the galaxy. The inscription read, "To humanity. Who held us together when we did not deserve it. Who left when we failed them. Who returned when we needed them. May we never forget this lesson." Jake stood before the monument with Helen and the other human representatives. He felt many things: pride, sadness, hope, relief. "We did it," Helen said quietly. "We made them understand," Jake nodded. Without a word, we left. With our return, they will never forget us again. The galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way. Humanity was not just useful. They were essential. Not because of what they could do, but because of who they were. They were builders and healers, engineers and teachers, helpers and friends, and they deserved respect. The council had finally learned to give them that respect, and humanity had learned that sometimes walking away was the only way to be heard. Together, they would build a better galaxy. One where all species were valued, one where contribution was recognized, one where no one was taken for granted. It had taken a crisis to get here, but they had arrived, and that was what mattered. The humans had returned, and the galaxy was better for it.